You can't half-ass it. You can't be part-time. You got to be all in. And I was not all in. And I was like, okay, this is the last one. If I get through this without any injuries, like, this is it. And so that was my last bullfight. It's your time or it's your money. There's only two options. And so when you're working a full-time job on the side and your ag job is a hustle, you end up paying for it.
Welcome back to the Wealthy Cowboy Show. I'm glad to have today we got a guy on that's got a lot of stuff going on in some interesting businesses and stuff. We'll get some different perspectives in the cutting horse business also. So Spencer Robinson, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you could come in this morning.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so like I said, you've got a lot of stuff going on, and from the little we've got to talk, but you're in some interesting businesses, got your hand in some different deals. Looks like you really love the cutting horse business, and the cutting horses.
Yes.
But tell us kind of your background, where you came from.
Man, background. I was did a little bit of ag, when I was younger, in my teens. Got my first steer. Went to the auction, learning about cattle because I didn't really know anything. So I went and sat next to the old timers at a cattle auction house, and we just pester them with questions. Just a 15-year-old in there just bothering them. And these guys were in their 60s and 70s, and some of them, didn't mind me asking and were there to help. And some guys were like, "Go away, kid," So that was kind of my first jump into, I guess, agriculture. My great grandfather, Floyd Jones, ran a 1,000-acre ranch in Central Oregon. And his
Where
son,
are you from?
Born in New Mexico. My parents split when I was very young, and mom got custody, and so she went to live with her mom and dad, my grandma and grandpa, on the Columbia River there in Vancouver, Camas, Washington area, and finished high school out there, joined the Army, went to Tennessee, lived in Tennessee, Kentucky area for about 5 years, and then ended up getting off active duty for the Army, and got hired as a Washington State Trooper and moved back to Washington. I never thought I'd leave Tennessee. I have family here in Texas, and I always kind of knew I'd end up back in either Tennessee or Texas. And when it came time to retire from the military and retire from law enforcement, Texas it was. So it's been here for the last couple of years and been awesome. I mean, cutting horse capital of the world, a lot of performance horses out here. And so I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. And so you're in the military, you're a state trooper. Were you involved in horses and agriculture at all during those times, or?
Yeah. So, I did a little high school rodeo, went into some amateur rodeo, and then got tied in with a stock contractor doing pro rodeos, and wanted to be a bull rider. Wasn't that good. Realized that there probably, a lot more injuries than checks for me in that line of work. But it kind of came up that one of the practice pens I worked at, bullfighters were hurt, didn't show up. They needed a bullfighter. So I stepped in, was like, hey, and ended up being pretty decent at it, kept working at it, went to a couple clinics, got better, and was kind of like, hey, this is actually something I'm good at. Got picked up by another stock contractor out in southern Illinois and Kentucky, and kind of did that, full time on the weekends for a long time in practice pens. What's kind of funny was I was active duty Army at the time, and so the rodeo world didn't know that I was in the Army, and the Army didn't know that I was doing, rodeo on the weekends and Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, and I enjoyed it. Just like the military and law enforcement, my favorite part is the people. Was always surrounded by really good people, and I just enjoyed the camaraderie of it, the competition part, and just really honing in my craft of rider protection, and really enjoyed that part. But there came a point where I was traveling by myself. My bullfighting partner kind of had other stuff going on, so he moved to Texas, and so I'm in Tennessee. I'm looking for a new partner to fight bulls with, and I remember I was in this period where I had to get out. I had to reenlist in the Army, or get out and get a job. And I was kind of like, man, I mean, bullfighting pays, but it's not going to pay the bills. It might keep you going, but you're not going to be able to afford a mortgage. So, I remember like, hey, I think I want to be in law enforcement. So I kind of started testing different agencies: Las Vegas Metro, Wyoming, Washington State Patrol, Lexington in Kentucky. Lexington actually called me first and had a job. And so I thought that I was going to go to Lexington Police Department. And then they called me back and said, oh, there's kind of a .com crash back in the 2000, 2001 timeframe. And they were like, our budget got cut for that academy. We can't hire you. And I was like, oh no, like, what am I going to do? And so I kind of sat and waited to, think about what I was going to do. And the Washington State Patrol called and said, hey, we got a job for you. Can you be here in 10 days? And I was like, absolutely. I can be there in 10 days. Well, I had a rodeo that weekend. And I remember thinking about it. I was like, man, the odds of getting injured, are never zero. Yeah. And I was like, man, I got this great job lined up with, good pay and benefits. And I'm putting it all on the line because I said I'd be there. So I got to show up, and I showed up. Well, the other guy that was supposed to fight with me that night didn't show up. And we had about 2 feet of mud in that arena, like the kind of arena where you step in and your foot sinks and you got to like pull it out.
You're not good for bullfighters.
Yeah. You're not going anywhere. and the whole concept of being, agile and light, I was not agile and light. I felt like I had, concrete on my shoes. And
you were the only bullfighter?
I'm the only bullfighter. And I remember the gate guys were like, oh, don't worry about it. We got you. And I was like, if you can find me when I'm getting trampled under the mud. And I just remember thinking, man, this is not this is a bad night. And I think we had, 10, 12 bull riders that night. And then another short go. And I remember thinking, I'm just counting them down. Okay, we got by this one, and we got by that one. Okay, how many more I got? Oh, I got 6 more bulls to go. And I remember in my head, I was like, this is not the mindset you need to have in this sport. Like, this is a bad mindset. Mm-hmm. You can't, just like law enforcement and military, you can't half-ass it. You can't be part-time. You got to be all in. And I was not all in. And I was like, okay, this is the last one. If I get through this without any injuries, like, this is it. And so that was my last bullfight. And I had done one of circuit finals the year before as a circuit finals bullfighter with one of my partners, Sean Langford, and it was a great year. And so it was one of those years. It's funny how fast things change. The year before, I was like, man, I'm never going to quit this. I'm never going to do anything else. And the next year here, I'm counting down my last bull so I can be done. And that was
I think your goals and stuff, I mean, as you evolve and adapt, like your goals and stuff can change. Like what you really want, like you really want to be bullfighter, and then it's like, I think I want to go do something else. I think that's all right. Like
yes.
I mean, people, you want to hit goals and achieve goals and all that, but like if your goals change, your life changes, your priorities change, then it's fine to shift.
It's true, yeah, and it's smart to pivot. You don't just get honed in one thing and be like, well, this is what I have to do.
Especially like you said, when you're in something dangerous like that. I mean, I've caught myself like that too before, and I can't remember. I was listening to a podcast the other day, something like that about. Well, one of them was JB Mooney on Dell's, and then like I think there's one where Cameron Haynes was on too, and then I've heard this kind of recurring theme. I listened to some with some military people, and it's the same deal. It's like you got to be all in and aggressive. Like if you're fighting. If you're doing any of that dangerous stuff and you're kind of like, what if, something bad happens or whatever, well, like the odds of that happening go up a lot if you're already thinking about it.
Yes.
But the guys that, it seems like the guys that don't ever get hurt or nothing like that, or they get hurt a lot less. Like they're the aggressive and they act like they have no fear. I'm sure it's in there, but they're confident and aggressive and all that.
Yeah. I think that's definitely fear. Fear breeds a lack of confidence. And so if you got that worry in the back of your head and that's what you're focused on, it's almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, in my opinion. And so, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I went and did a law enforcement career, ended up going to another agency, spent 17 years there, 21 years total. At the same time, I joined the Army Reserves, 9/11, and it happened. And so I wanted to be, still serving my country. And that was important to me at the time. And so I just stayed in the reserves and kind of ran parallel, careers. I finished out 22 and combined active duty and reserve service. I wanted to get into entrepreneurship. I wanted to work for myself. But I didn't know where to look. There's a lot of business companies out there that buy and sell companies, but finding a broker that you can trust or somebody that can help you is kind of a challenge. There's a lot of fly-by-night guys out there, I'll call them, that they'll find you a business. Are the financials good? Don't know. Find out after you buy it. You know what I mean? That type of thing.
DAX Trailer Sales is based out of Lubbock, Texas, and it's definitely not just a trailer dealership. If you are involved in the Western way of life, and if you're listening to this show, you probably are, they have something you need. From trailers for a day working cowboy to a full-time cattle hauler to hay trailers for a farmer or rancher to arena drags, rope and chutes, and feeders for the rodeo cowboy or cowgirl. They also deal in every kind of hay any of your animals could ever need. Literally anything you need for farming, ranching, or rodeoing, they have something for you. And it's gonna be at a super affordable price. Besides all that, everyone you deal with there is super friendly and helpful. We just got new custom flatbeds built for our pickups, and I also got probably the coolest trailer you've ever seen built. And you can stay tuned for a video we're gonna do, and it's gonna show all of that and some more of their products also. So check out DAX Trailer Sales on Facebook or dxtrailers.com. Did all this happen? You were retired up there in Washington, and then you moved to Texas. Were you looking at buying a business down here? Was it like, how did that evolve?
I was looking at doing a lot of startups. And there's a gal that, really smart gal in business. Her name's Cody Sanchez. She has a book about buying and selling businesses. And one of the things she talks about is don't do a startup. Buy an established business, buy something that people are retiring out of that's got a good couple decades of growth, and that it's probably got some old systems that you can improve upon and try to scale it. And so the school supply company kind of fell in our lap. We had a neighbor that was like, "Are you still looking to buy a business?" And I was like, "I am." And they said, "We got this couple at church that they're trying to sell their business. I don't know a lot about it, but they're trying to retire, and it's been around since the late 70s, and you should look into it." And I was like, "Okay." And so we linked up with them and talked about it.
This is after y'all already moved down here?
Yeah, I hadn't retired out of law enforcement yet. So I was still working up there, but my wife and my kids had moved down here. So,
and I wanted to ask you before we get too far from it, but like what brought you back to Texas from up there? Were you already wanting to get back in the horses, or what?
Yeah, that's a hard one to articulate. I was social media friends with a couple of cops that were down here, and social media friends, and hitting them up saying, "Hey, what do you like about this area?" Just kind of getting some feedback. One of the officers had been lived in Tacoma, Washington, which wasn't about 2 hours south of where I lived. So he was familiar where I was at, and had been in this area of Texas, and had a good idea of what I was looking for. And I knew that, it's very heavy in performance horses, rodeo, whatever you want to get into, whatever discipline, cow reining, all of that's here. I dare say we're the capital of that in the U.S., potentially the world. And so I knew I wanted to be a part of that somehow. Didn't quite know, how I was going to work that out. And we'll get to how I got into performance horses because it wasn't really planned. But that's the city I live in ended up just the real estate agent. His name's Colt Remington. And he, his address was 3030. And I was like, man, come on, you can't get more Texas than that, and he's a friend of mine, prior service member, prior in law enforcement. And I was like, okay, I got the right real estate agent. We got a lot of connections, a lot of things in common. And he had done pro rodeo as well in saddle bronc riding. And so we checked out the area. And I remember at the time, like the real estate market, 2021, I think it was just, crazy. I mean, everything's selling, everything's, people are putting in cash offers, 50, 75,000. I remember, trying to, look at buy a couple houses and you give them what they're asking for and they're like, sorry, that wasn't enough. Somebody put 75,000 down and you're like, I mean, you're kind of bidding against yourself. You don't know, trying to get these houses back then. And, I remember just kind of being defeated, like, okay, we're probably going to have to build and that's probably going to be, we're going to have to move into a rental and it's going to be a 2-year process, potentially 3. I mean, building's not exactly quick and all the builders were just slammed, And I remember somebody had said, hey, the neighbor in Colt Remington's neighborhood is looking to potentially sell. And this fall, maybe you should knock on their door. And I was like, okay. So I was like, beautiful house, had a pool shop, everything we were looking for. We lived on a farm at the time and had a small head of cattle, had an indoor, had a covered arena, 23 horse stalls. I was really sad about selling that place because it truly was kind of my dream property, but also I kind of felt like led by God to, take my family here. And all these things just kind of lined up. It's kind of hard to explain. You can't describe it unless you live it. But we knocked on this family's door, and his name's Kevin Powers, and he answered the door and said, "Hey, we're looking for a house to buy. I know this is kind of weird. Would you be interested in selling yours?" And he was like, "Yeah, you want to tour the place first, And we toured the place, and I looked at my wife, like, "What do you think?" And she's like, "I love it." And he's like, "You know what? We would be interested in selling it." And so he kind of described the circumstances they had. It just worked out perfectly. And, that was that, knock on the door, handshake, sold. I mean, doesn't get much easier than that. So, add to that, this hometown of Chris Kyle, American Sniper. I'm like, man, if this town can raise a guy like that, it's good enough for my kids. So, got them into the football culture. They're all, football players, got them into the sports. And so it's just been a pretty seamless transition. Buying that business, was kind of like just a godsend. I'd been looking for the right thing for a long time and just couldn't find what it was we were looking for. We'd gotten into agritainment. I don't know if you've heard of agritainment. So agritainment is really big in Snohomish County. It's probably Snohomish County, Washington is one of the leading spots in the nation for agritainment. And what they do is, you'll have a farm that'll take 40 acres and put a corn maze in. They'll have, you'll have a petting zoo, with calves and goats. They'll have a hay pile where they'll build this huge, hay pile pyramid and kids can go climb it. They'll have, you have all the homemade good, the honey, the jams, the little market. And they'll have, have these air cannons where you put an apple in and shoot it out and smash a steel target out there.
There's a place like that we took the kids to down by us in Temple. And that's what I was walking around like, this is a great idea. Same deal. They took this little part of their property and put all those little deals in there. And I mean, just people are rolling in and out and probably making all kinds of money on it.
Oh, they do really well, as long as the government's not taxing you to death. But up there, they have a big. There's they have it's seasonal. They have Christmas events. They have Easter egg hunts. They have a big Halloween haunted barns up there, really really big. And we would go to some of the haunted barns, and just the creativity that they put into those is just on a massive level. These barns, dairy barns, have been turned into these haunted houses, and it got the wheels rolling because I was like, man, I'd love to take my kids to this, but they're so young that I'm not trying to have them have nightmares for months. You know what I mean? And so I was like, man, if they could make something without any blood, any gore, any zombies, that would be cool. Something more Disney-esque. That's kid fun, but not going to terrify the crap out of them. And I was like, why don't we do that? I mean, if we're parents of 3 boys looking for something we can take our kids to that's fun, why can't we make something like that? And so we did, and it did really, really well. In fact, we didn't do really any advertisement. We just did a kind of a flyer and put it on Eventbrite, posted on social media, and that was kind of our sales pitch was, hey, we're kids 4 to 12, no guts, no gore, no blood, no zombies, and we set the arena up with a maze. We had brought in some kids as actors, and it was really cool. We sold out for like 3 weekends in a row, and we added on all these. It's kind of one of these silly things where my wife Nellie runs down and bought like all these chem lights from the dollar store, and I mean she probably spent $500 on chem lights, and I was like, what? Why would you spend? What a waste of money! Like nobody's gonna buy these, and then she had them listed for like $10 or $20 for 2. And I was like, these are dollar store chem lights. No one's going to buy these. Like, no. And she's like, it's called an add-on. And we sold out in like 3 hours. They were all sold out. Everybody bought them. And I was like, are you kidding me? And then we had chocolate and apple cider and all these other things. And I was like, okay, the add-ons are a smart move. You know what I mean? Like, and then we were like, hey, we're going to grow this and scale it. We were doing some retirement parties, birthday parties, things like that, using the barn and the facilities for agri-tainment purposes. And then COVID hit, and it was like everything was shut down, and it was, that's kind of where it was like, well, when are we going to open up? When are we able to do this again? And then the taxes on the farm like doubled, and you're like, man, we got to come up with another revenue source. And, I was making really good money out there. Law enforcement out there makes really, really good pay. I mean, most cops I know out there making $60, $75 to $90, $120 an hour is not, especially on contracted overtime jobs. That's pretty standard, which is, for blue collar work, that's really good money. But your cost of living is extremely high. I mean, the cost of living has gone way up. Your gas is, $5.50 a gallon. A starter home is like $750,000. So that money doesn't go very far. So yeah, you're making good money, but it's all going right out the door into to what it costs to live. So having that farm, like I said, it was a dream come true, but it broke my heart the day I had to sell it. At the same price, we kind of was like, hey, we're just going to put it up to God. Like if he wants to sell it, we're going to list it at an extremely high price. And, if it sells, great. And if it doesn't, then no problem. And I kind of wish that it hadn't sold because, I was in my head, I was like, yeah, it'd be great to get that really high price for it. But at the same time, if it doesn't sell, I'm happy to stay here too. So 2 weeks later, it sold. And it was one of those all cash offers. And I had people make fun of me at work when I went into work, went into the office. One of the guys was like, you're never going to get that for your place, but good luck. Everybody kind of laughed like, oh man, I hope you get it, oh, keep wishing. And I was kind of like, yeah, they're probably right. Never going to get it. We're just, we threw a big number out there. And when the buyer came in with an all cash offer, like this is serious, and the proof of funds was like 10 million in the bank. And you're like, oh, this is real. This is happening, And so, it was, and it was a blessing because, at the time my wife had some medical, stuff going on, and a lot of money had, we'd lost her income because she was at home trying to recover from her medical stuff. And, I think the day we sold the farm, we had like $250 in savings. It was, when people think running a farm is fun, but there's a cost to it. The tractor breaks down. You got to fix, are you going to fix it yourself or are you going to pay somebody else? Mm-hmm. If you fix it yourself, you got to take the time. What's that time coming away from? The bulls trampled the fence, and the entire fence needs replacing. The fence posts are all broke.
The maintenance is like something that you don't figure in. It's like, I can afford to make the payment, but let's be honest, ordering custom merch is way harder than it should be. You get some random sales rep who thinks ag is short for aggressive. They slap your logo on a boxy tee no one wants or the same cap that your competitor has, and then hit you with surprise charges for artwork, setup, and who knows what else. That's why I've been working with Brand Cowboy. They actually live in the ag, western, and outdoor world. No artwork fees, no setup fees, and they know what looks good because they're part of the culture. They're not faking it from an embroidery shop in the big city or screen printing shirts in their brother-in-law's garage. We're even building Wealthy Cowboy Show merch with them right now, and it's been awesome. They made it easy, fast, and actually fun. And if you want more than logos on blanks, they've got full cut and sew capabilities, built from scratch, custom fabrics just for your brand. Private labeling inside and out. Head to brandcowboy.com and book a call. Mention Crockett and get a free 30-minute consultation on how you can build merchandise that your customers will actually want to wear, and at such a high quality you could offer it for sale no matter what industry you're in. Brand Cowboy, made for you, made for your brand. Like you said, who's gonna mow and weed eat and fix fence and weld and fix waters, and
the horse stalls are leaking. Somehow you just sprung some leaks. You don't know why, but they're up there. Who's gonna get up there and patch it and fix it? I mean, it was just, you got some flooding in the south pasture, like that just sprung up. Like, we don't know why it's flooding. You got to solve that stuff. So it's your time or it's your money. There's only two options. And so when you're working a full-time job on the side and your ag job is a hustle, we end up paying for it. And so it is not cheap. So the day we sold, it was like, oh man, what a blessing. We're about to be in the negative, and we, would have kept going in the negative till, who knows when. So then the next part of that is, okay, you got this big chunk of money, right? And there's two mindsets. Their mindset of like, well, now we can go get a new, SUV. We can go on that family vacation we always wanted to go to. We can buy that big house we always wanted. And I was in the other camp, was like, no, I want to save this and I want to make my money work for me. Because keeping your money is, making money is not the hard part. Keeping your money is the hard part.
Had you been in like around business people or mentorships or something like to make you think that way, or you just?
No. And honestly, there was of all things, there was a pastor at a church that we went to, and he had been very successful. He'd been a millionaire before he ever became a pastor. Very successful in the real estate industry, early, I'm going to say mid 2000s before the market crash. He had made a lot of money in building houses, not just houses, but like neighborhoods. And he kind of had an idea of how to manage money, and he'd given me some tips, and just kind of listening to him on his mindset behind money. And, of course, he recommended the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, which, that was one of my intros into.
I think that was one of my first ones. That's like a great intro. It's a lot of people's intro book, and it's like I think it's a great one. It's easy to read, and the way he tells the story and stuff and relates it all. It's it's real easy to understand. It seems like.
Well, it's a mindset, and so I understood mindset. I'm like, okay, rodeo, law enforcement, military, you got to have a mindset doing what you're doing. And so I understood that concept. And then the other part of that is I started realizing that my peers there's a lot of people in law enforcement, and not just law enforcement, first responder careers where the 7-year itch is real. You kind of hit that, you pull in the parking lot and, going to work and you're like, this is all there is, and guys hit that, and reinventing yourself in those careers is critical to, making 2 decades. Kind of finding your purpose, kind of finding your why. You got to do that. And there's a lot of guys that, whether it's, the politics of the industry or the tensions inside the agency, or sometimes the community that they're policing, they're just burnt out, and they probably shouldn't be on the job anymore. But they have this mindset of like, well, this is the best that I can do. This is the most, and I remember that same mindset. I went and did a off-duty law enforcement job for a company, and I was getting $120 an hour. And I was thinking, this is amazing. I'm on a 12-hour shift. I'm making over $1,000, doing very little work. And, I'm thinking, man, I'll never make this, if I go somewhere else. And I had a guy that actually said, well, it's unfortunate because you guys are locked in and that's all you can make. And I remember thinking, what do you mean that's all I can make? And they're, well, $110, you're capped out. Yeah. You can't do any better than that. And I remember thinking like, whoa, that shook my concept. And I was like, oh, what a concept. What do you mean? Like, oh, I'm capped out. Like I can't do any better than that. And then that flipped my mindset. And I started realizing like, oh, okay. Like, instead of looking at it as like, I'm trapped, I'll never do better, I'm actually anchored because this is all I can do.
Whole world out there.
Yes. And so
that Myron Golden, it just reminded me of that story. This guy I follow a lot. Have you ever heard of him? He's got a big YouTube channel and stuff. And he said that he started in network marketing and sales and stuff, and then got into training marketers and salespeople. And he said he had built his business up pretty good. He's making $30,000 a month, he said. And this was a while back. So I'm sure he was like, that was pretty dang good. And that's still good. But he was talking to somebody that was further along than him, and he's like, he thought he was like a big shot. He's like, I'm making $30,000 a month, blah, blah, blah. And this guy's like, oh yeah. He's like, you're really close to having a breakthrough. And he said the same deal. That just like shook him. He's like, I'm getting close. He's like, I thought I was already here. And then since then, he's making a lot more money now. But it's funny how you can like get around the right people and it shifts. Like, no, I have a lot more I can do.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Oh, you're almost about to have a breakthrough. That's good. I like that. So yeah, that started changing my mindset, and I started realizing that there was a lot of guys that have that, well, this is the best I can do. I can't leave because if I left, I'd never find this again. Mm-hmm. And when you realize that, man, you got a lot of, I see these guys and I was like, man, you got a lot of skills. You're good with people. Like you have, these guys limit themselves or pigeon themselves as just like, I'm only a cop. And I was like, man, no, you got management skills. You have customer service skills. You have instructing skills. You have all these skills that you could transfer to something else, but they don't see it. And so it doesn't matter what you tell them of like, if their mindset doesn't perceive it, then they are stuck. So I left early. I retired early, not because I hated the job. I loved the job. I've always been blessed. I never had to commute in my life. It's, sign in service in your driveway with your dispatcher and boom, you're at work. I mean, how cool is that? I worked with really good people. I had supportive command staff. For everybody that was like, F the police, there was 10 more that were like, thank you for what you do. So The call loads were manageable, and that you weren't bored, but at the same time you weren't so overloaded that it was just call to call to call, and you were burned out by the end of the shift. So
were you like on the highway, or were you doing like more criminal stuff, or?
So I spent about 11 years in a major crimes unit doing detective work, and had a collateral assignment on SWAT. We had a regional SWAT team, so it was kind of cool. You got to work with a lot of different agencies, a lot of the best guys from different agencies. What I really liked about being with those guys is they're always trying to improve. Nobody really wanted to stay stagnant. Everybody's trying to get better. And I loved being around those guys. You know, the top 5 people you hang around, you become top 4. Was it top 4 people you hang around with? You become the 5th. You know, become like them. So, you know, if you want to surround to me, in my mindset, I wanted to surround myself with, you know, guys that were constantly trying to improve. And then I ended up getting promoted. Went back to patrol. Was a patrol sergeant, and that was I mean, I loved that job. Yeah, I think you have a lot of influence as a patrol sergeant, where you can influence command staff, and at the same time, I wouldn't say lead the officers. I mean, that's important. You got to set the example, but I looked at it as my role is to support them. You know, those guys, they're pretty much everyone on my team had 5+ years. You know, if you got 5+ years, you pretty much got the job down, and you're a professional. You don't need, you know, sergeant to come along and lead you. You need somebody to come along and support you. So I tried. That was kind of my mindset in the position, and I loved it. So when people hear that I left law enforcement early, it's not because I was burned out. I genuinely felt a calling to move my family and move my kids to Texas. So
did everybody think you were crazy?
No, and that's the kind of thing. The cost of living up in that area, and just, you know, the area being what it is, culturally, there's a lot of people that are just waiting to retire so that they can move to Wyoming or, you know, Montana or Idaho or another state. And so everybody understood. You know, nobody, you know, a lot of people still call me and are like, man, so jealous you got out. I got another 3 years. And it's like, you know, and so, and I get it. You know, your pension, you know, kind of determines on how many years you do. And so they're trying to set themselves up for retirement. But I also, I'd been to so many law enforcement funerals that I also was aware of, like, your time is limited. You know, the devil's biggest lie is you think you have time. You know, you think you have time to do the things you do, but you don't. And so I started, you know, this last funeral I went to was an Everett officer that just, you know, city over, named Dan Roca. He was shot and killed in a parking lot, getting his coffee that morning. And that was like a sober reminder of, like, you think you have time. And I was like, man, I've been to enough memorials, and that I was like, I need to go do the things that I want to do. And if I leave a little bit of my pension on the table and leave that behind, I'm okay with it. Mm-hmm. And so selling the farm helped with that. And we started company Invest in Techs. And that's where we started, you know, trying to buy properties, because I understood properties, you know, got into bigger pockets, mm-hmm. you know, buying some fixer flips, buying some Airbnbs.
You were doing that up there?
No, I did that down here. We got down to Texas. And so, and tried to really, like, make sure that nest egg we had would work for us mm-hmm. in the future. Then we bought the school supply company. And so that's, you know, that's kind of where, and the best part about the school supply company is, you know, we get summers off. And so that's what led to other opportunities. I think it was 2020, we're in 2025, man, time goes quick. Mm-hmm. I think it might've been I think it was last year. Yeah, last year. Had a friend in Stevenson, Montana. Jessica Harrison called me and said, hey, they're trying to hire a law enforcement officer, retired law enforcement and military, for a role on Yellowstone. And I thought of you and you should apply. And I was like, hey, why not? I got the summer off. So I applied, and they called and said, yeah, can you come up and film in Darby, Montana for a week? And I was like, absolutely. And then my wife and my kids got to go up, and I said, hey, they're going to be with me. is there anything they can do? And they said, yeah, we got extra rolls for them. So my kids were sitting at the fire with the 4.6s, camp wagon, and Gator from the 4.6s is cooking them steak, and they're just raving. They're like, Dad, that was the best steak I've ever had in my life. And we just sat there all day eating it. I was like, how blessed are you guys to get to come up and do that? So it was a really cool experience. And that role, that I filled the role of Park County Sheriff, and my wife played a buyer at this auction. And kids played, just camp kids around the campfire. And it was just a fun experience. Made some really good friends from that experience. And that small little role, which gave me, less than, 0.03 seconds on screen time. I thought I was going to get a lot of screen time. And it was funny, at the end, they cut almost all the scenes that we were in. And I was like, I was like, can they do that? I can't believe it. So that was
you were up there for a week, and you thought you would be on there for a while, and it was like
nothing. Yeah. But that role ended up, I was kind of like, do I want to do acting? Like it was kind of fun. I wasn't really sure if I liked it. So I started putting in for other roles, and got a few of them. And the only thing I had on my resume was, Yellowstone, season 5, and all these other companies would call me back. And I remember, like, in this group, this one girl's like, I've been posting for, I've been applying for jobs for 3 years and I can't get a call back. And I was like, man, I keep getting calls back, and it's not because I'm a good actor. And I was like, man, I'm pretty sure that role opened up, even though it was tiny, opened up opportunities. And what I realized is I don't like acting. I like helping make the film authentic. And so that led to this little film advising company I started, and Vinci Film Advisors. And we do 3 things: law enforcement, military, and Western heritage lifestyle advising for some of these smaller films and TV. And it's just been a referral, director to director, saying, hey, I hired this guy. And directors talk to each other, and they're like, hey, this is what I need. I need a law enforcement guy that can set up this scene. Mm-hmm. Hey, I use Spencer Robinson, call him. So everything's
just to make everything real.
Yeah, that's what
I think that a lot of, like, in Westerns and stuff, I'm like what do you like? All this stuff is wrong about this. Like, why would you not? Yellowstone, has been pretty good about setting everything up pretty realistic, but it's like, no, like, people don't wear those hats, or the hats on backwards. And just the clothes to this tag.
No cowboy's going to wear that belt.
And it's
that looks like Gucci.
You could go hire like somebody like you, and either advise or actually just go hire some actually real guys.
Yeah. Well, the thing in that industry, I'm starting to learn, and there's another guy that I've kind of learned some stuff from. He said it really well. It was it's not that these directors don't hire a technical advisor; it's they don't listen to them. And some of these advisors get this, not advisors, directors. Maybe it's an assistant director, maybe it's the writer. They get this idea in their head of how they want it to be, and no matter how many times you tell them, because I had one scene, they wanted the cops to come through, waving their guns around. I was trying to explain, like, we wouldn't do that. Like, first of all, you're flagging the people in the room. That's unsafe. Second of all, like, if you're swinging your guns around, you're not really like assessing the room, assessing the threat. I tried to explain, like, this is what we would do. We'd be at a low compressed ready, and we'd be, more head up, eyes scanning. And they're like, no, it looks better on camera, doing this. And I was like, okay, what? And so then I had to try to find that happy compromise of what if we do the camera shot from the ground up? You're still getting the barrel, you're still getting the officer, down the barrel shot that they wanted. Mm-hmm. I said, but it's more realistic because we're not going to come in waving our guns around. Yeah. And you see that so often in TV, and you're like, why did they do that? Well, they probably do have a technical advisor. They're just not listening to them. And so and
it's probably like, we were on the Cowboy Way, Alabama, and it was the same deal. They were like, we're in the deal, we're driving cattle to the pens, and they'd be like, let's make something up to where we got to rope something. It's like, no, you would never do that. Like, we're going to the pins already. Like, let's rope something to doctor it, you know? And it's like,
let's spook the herd. So
Yeah.
they all take off running.
but they always want to rope something. So, and then there were several little instances, same kind of deal. I would never know the gun thing, but you know, I'm sure every law enforcement person's like idiots.
Yeah.
But like on the cowboy side of stuff, I can see that. And like, but they're like, oh, 99% of people will never know, you know, most people aren't experts in, you know, ranching or cowboy stuff. They don't know. They're just going to watch it for entertainment. I'm sure you had the same, or still deal with the same stuff. Like, people don't know that.
Oh, 100%.
Are you tired of paying record high bull prices only to watch your new purchases damage themselves or your things, or even worse, stand in the shade and melt? 100th Meridian Ranching's bull leasing program offers a cost-efficient way to get your cows bred and creates more flexibility for you 9 months out of the year. With over 400 Black Angus, Red Angus, and Charolais bulls in inventory that are in range-ready, working condition, this could be the solution for you. Check out 100th Meridian Ranching on Facebook or Instagram, 100thmeridianranching.com, or give Lane a call to discuss more, 325-226-5240.
And one of the companies that I'm not going to throw their name out there, but they were really good to me. But the staff on the show didn't understand setting up law enforcement equipment on a belt, and they had a female officer, and her handcuffs were jammed behind her gun. Her radio was on the same side as her gun. Like, everything was like overly whelming on the right side. And I was trying to explain, and this was just after the whole Rust incident where I can't remember his name, but famous actor had accidentally
the
shot.
Baldwin.
Yes. So you have that national news. I completely understand. Everybody's on edge dealing with firearms at the scene. Well, first of all, these aren't real firearms. They're, you know, prop guns. They can't take a real bullet. They can't actually fire anything, but I understand the safety protocols. Everybody's, you know, doubling down on safety. So everybody was kind of on edge with us just having prop guns, which I'm okay with. Like, hey, we got to be safe. I don't know the situation on that set, but completely unacceptable. Somebody got killed. So clearly, like, whatever standards and rules they had in place weren't working that day. So no problems with the safety. However, when I was trying to explain, hey, you guys need to move her equipment out because on set, any officer seeing that, they're going to look at her and realize that she'd never be able to draw her gun in real life. And they looked at me and they said, "Sir, we don't want her drawing her gun. This is just a TV show." And I was like, I understand that. What I'm saying is that as a female deputy, she's going to be judged a little extra harder, because females in general, in my opinion, in law enforcement, get judged a little bit harder just for being a female. And I was like, you're making her look bad. And I was like, people will know, especially in their law enforcement, that she doesn't know what she's doing. This is day one academy stuff, and it doesn't look authentic. So they're going to know she couldn't draw her gun. And they just looked at me like I was crazy. And they're like, "Sir, we don't want her drawing her gun." And I'm like, oh my God. Okay. I'm like, you morons. I don't want her to draw her gun. I'm saying hypothetically in the role that she's playing as she's dressed, you know. And then I was like, you know what? Forget about it.
Did they get their way at the end?
That, you know, she picked up on what I was saying, and she ended up changing herself. So the problem fixed itself. But just having some of the staff look at me like, what are you talking about? You know, in my head, I was like, am I communicating poorly? Like, what am I saying wrong here? You know, but it made me realize, like, not everybody understands authentic to film. And so that's kind of where this little company I built, and just word of mouth has been, that's kind of our slogan, is we want to make your show and what you're doing authentic to film. You don't have to listen to us. You're just advising you. So if, you know, you don't like what we have to say, hey, sure. You know, ultimately it's their film. Mm-hmm. It's not my film. You know, we just try to make it a little bit better so that people in the community look at it and don't instantly change the channel because they're like, this is unbelievable. You know? So
yeah, that's it. That's a cool business. I want to go back to your other businesses too.
Yeah.
Which one came first, the real estate or the school supplies?
So, the real estate.
I want to talk about both.
They were really kind of right on top of each other. But the real estate, because we needed to, protect our purchasing ability. And I didn't want that in a general checking, because then it's just easy to,
spend it.
That's right. If you got it, you'll spend it. I'm not the best with finances. So, but I knew that I was like, I don't need access to this. This needs to go into a business account. It needs to be for business purposes. And so, that's where the Invest in Tech's, LLC came from. And, I would say most of our properties we bought off market, or we bought through a wholesaler. I know a lot of real estate folks don't like wholesalers. I didn't understand wholesaling. Have you ever dealt with wholesaling? Mm-hmm. So I'm not an expert in it, but the way I understood it is these guys go out and find these off-market properties. You don't have to have a real estate license to be a wholesaler. And they'll use a contract. And let's just say they find somebody that's behind on their taxes, and they're afraid that they can't sell the place because, they got to pay real estate commissions and they got to pay the government. And this company will come in and say, hey, we think your house is worth, $200,000. We'll give you $180 for it. And, if it's fixed up and the after repair value, you put some money into it, the house might be worth $275, $300. Mm-hmm. But, nobody, obviously the homeowner doesn't have that money, and they're trying to offload the property. So before they get foreclosed on. So this company will buy it outright. And then rather than put it on the MLS, rather than try and market it, they try to find, people like myself,
investors
that are trying to buy a property like that, put the money into it, fix it up, and rent it. So they'll turn and flip it for $10,000, $15,000, where you're like, well, $10,000 on a real estate deal isn't a lot. Well, if you sell one house a month for 12 months, that's $120,000. Mm-hmm. That's not bad. You know what I mean? And just for doing some contract work and a couple conversations. Yeah. That's good money in my book. So,
yeah. Addison Blanks?
I don't.
I had him on, and they do that. Well, that's their main business, plus Profit Homes, I think is the name of the company. They're right around here. Mm. I'll have to put you in touch with them, but that's what they do. And then I think he actually does some investing on the back end, but they do a lot of the just wholesaling houses.
Yeah, a lot of guys in the wholesale, bought a couple houses wholesale. I had a good experience doing it, and it worked. And, put some money into it, got it. New floors, new drywall, new roof. Had to call an exterminator on one of them because there was a whole nest of raccoons living in the chimney. Little things like that, but yeah, it's been a good experience. It's been a learning experience. Always add 10% on whatever you're doing. Sometimes 30%, depending on what the project is. Ran over budget on one of them, which is still a learning experience. But had planned on making that a long-term hold, and had to turn around and sell it because we couldn't really rent it for what we had into it. So,
when you got started in it, were you fixing and flipping, or were you renting, or doing both?
Primarily looking at stuff we could do long-term holds on.
And just single family houses?
Yeah, single family. I know a lot of people are like, duplexes and apartment complexes. Well, what I found is the market on duplexes and everybody else is trying to do the same thing. So good luck. The apartment complexes, if you had a network, somebody that could tie you in before, other people were bidding on it, you might find a deal. But so much out-of-state money was coming in, just like us. You got people from California coming in. You got people from New York. You got people from, all over, because Texas cost of living is, low, and properties and price, home values are still pretty low. So what you can buy for your dollar is a lot more. So you're not just competing against, it's not a small market. It's a lot of people out there trying to do the same thing. And I just didn't have luck finding that apartment complex that would, that we could invest in and actually turn a profit on. I was trying to get something more than just break even. There was a couple deals where it's like, okay, you can probably break even and down the line potentially raise the rents and make a profit, but it wasn't going to be for, you'd be in the dark of when you could do that and how long that would be out. It's kind of an unknown. So I just took things that I knew that, okay, this is going to generate income now in perpetuity. Is that the right word? For the long term. That's kind of what, and I say it like, oh, I did this. Yeah, my wife did a ton of it. You know what I mean? Honestly, she was the brainchild behind all of it. She's usually looked at me and said, "What do you think?" And I'd be like, "I like it." So, yeah, I don't want to make it sound like it was me making all the decisions on it, but we had some success doing that.
And then how has that developed? Have y'all started fundraising and taking on partners on deals and two? Or
we haven't. Obviously rates changed a lot, slowed a lot of that down. So we really haven't been focused on that so much in the last year. I think it'll be interesting to see how things play out over the next year with some of that. I noticed trends across a lot of the counties is inventory's up, but sales are also 40% sales over the regional counties over the last couple of months. So there's more inventory, but the sales are kind of staying steady. So I don't see any doom and gloom crash. I keep track of land prices, and a lot of the land prices that I was looking at just 6 months ago are all sold. Large properties, everything from 100 to 300 acres have all been taken off the market. So stuff's moving. It's not just sitting around price dropping.
Yeah, and especially like you were saying, we see so many out of state people coming in that being native here, we think it's like crazy high. And then somebody else comes in, they're like, "Oh, this is a hell of a deal.
It's a rock bottom deal." Yeah, no, it's true. And I hear a lot of that. Even with some of my family members are like, you don't know how it used to be. And I was like, well, I kind of do. Like, I understand because I came from that same, area where, you could buy, my first starter house was, $225. And then that same starter house is $750. So I do understand,
Yeah, it's funny it's funny to hear like I listen to Brad Lee a lot, and and they were talking. He's brought it up several times, but he's talking about Texas. He lives in Vegas, and no telling what it costs out there. But he's like, "Oh yeah, my buddy, he showed me this big badass house in Rockwall, and for like $1 million." He's like, and it's huge. He's like, "Dang, if I could get that for $1 million, that's like nothing." And I was just thinking, like, yeah, it's crazy, like just people's perspective. And then like probably like in sales and stuff, like the anchor, like people's anchor is way higher up there, whereas we're anchored to a lot lower price, or
yeah,
it's just the perspective of the people.
Totally.
So let's talk a little bit about your school supplies business.
Yes, sir.
That's that would be like you mentioned Cody Sanchez. That seems like it would be a boring business that he talks about.
Yeah, it is. It is a boring business. Yeah, basically, so we sell school supplies through these vending machines, and the school gets 20% of the sales. So we donate 20% back to the school. And it's everything. We'll source stuff for schools, but really these vending machines are the bread and butter of the school. And it's everything we have is fun. We don't have boring yellow 2-number pencils. We don't have orange erasers. We have all the erasers come in like a little gumball capsule, and they're like toys. So little trucks, little cows and horses and soccer balls, and they're all toys. So it's stuff the kids want. They're like, oh, they see it as a toy, but they can use it for the classroom. The pencils are all bright colored. Dallas Cowboys, sports teams. Just bright glittered stuff that's fun. And so that's kind of one of the slogans of we changed. I think it used to be, a wise choice since 1978 was our slogan. And we changed it to making learning fun since 1978, because that's really what our school supply products are focused around is giving the kid a product they need and they can use in the classroom, but still has that kind of
that they want
childhood fun to it. Yeah.
So you mentioned a little bit about the process as an older couple that y'all that kind of wanted to sell and y'all got put together. Was that a owner finance deal? Did y'all like help each other out, win-win on each side, or did you have to raise the funds to buy that business? And how did that process?
Yeah, we had to raise the funds. We ended up getting a private investor to help fund that, and then some of our own funding to get that up and running. And so it's been going good so far. It's a challenge. It's a very seasonal industry. And the second part of that is you're dealing with, this isn't something you can go on social media and post advertisements and do e-commerce on. It's, you have to go, we're a Hub certified business. So which Hub is highly underutilized. Myself is veteran, my wife is female. So we got Hub certified, and that allows the government's supposed to prioritize Hub businesses. But you have to go to each ISD and apply and say, hey, I want to be an approved vendor. Well, that's not too hard. It's just some paperwork, and you get on their list of being an approved vendor. So most ISDs require their schools to purchase from an approved vendor. Well, after you get approved vending, now you got to go to the individual schools, and we have to get the elementary school principal, assistant principal, secretary. We have to get them to want to sign up and use our products and use our services. And so that can be a challenge, especially if they haven't heard of us. I would say that the ballpark of our growth is word of mouth. And a lot of times it's, a principal moves from one school to another, goes to the new school, and it's like, hey, we're not using these school supplies. Hey, they'll call us up and say, hey, would you come service us? Absolutely. So that's a huge part of our business right there, is that word of mouth. And
is there a lot of competition, like you said? Is the school having to pay anything? I mean, you're giving
no cost. Yeah, no cost.
So you'd think it'd be an easy sell that they're not paying anything and they're getting 20% back.
Yeah. So there
it's still a sell, I'm sure.
There are competitors out there, and some of the schools we are joint servicing. So we know that the competitors are also servicing, and we're servicing them. They might be doing, shirts and stickers and things like that. And we're handling the paints, pencils, erasers, and classrooms. Another thing too, we're really focused on elementary schools. That's really where our products, you get in the middle school, the kids have kind of outgrown our products. You get into the high school, our stuff isn't cool. The kids don't care. But the elementary school is where our products are a big hit. And so, there are other competitors. Sometimes we're both in the same school. So,
and it's a vending machine.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So, like how does that work? I'm just thinking, like you got your servicing. It's mainly smaller kids, elementary school. Is it like a cash vending machine or some kind of coupon token deal? Or
everything we have is a quarter to 50 cent based, and so they put their 50 cents in, they get the product. We also sell directly to the schools or to the ISD bulk products. So that's another revenue source. Recently, we started realizing how much silver was coming through our we'll have $1,000 bag quarters, and you got $1,000 in a bag of quarters. And you realize there's a lot of silver in here sometimes. And so we started sifting through, and we found a way to sort out the silver and, replace it with a regular quarter. So that's a third revenue source that we use, is just separating out the silver. And man, I can't tell you how many times I'm like, what kid went and raided their dad or their granddad's, silver collection? I was spending these, 1936, 1956. There's another source on that is I think it's called numismatic. It's a coin expert. So there's certain coins out there that are really valuable. 1 quarter can bring in $15.
Yeah.
And so that's another revenue source. My wife, she started figuring out which quarters were valuable. And so when she finds those dates, she sets it aside. We throw a regular quarter back in, and those quarters go off to, sell through various coin collectors. So it's kind of been fun seeing how that, developed.
And that's what I was going to ask. My next question was, when you bought it, did you see ways that you could improve the business to make it? Sure, it was already profitable, but like, did you see ways that you could improve upon it to make it more profitable for you?
We did, and some of them improved, and some of them kind of didn't really improve as much as I thought. The previous owners had the business, pretty dialed in, but like, anybody in the 80s and 90s, they really relied on sticky notes and tablets, and there wasn't much of a CRM process. There wasn't much of a follow-up process. The record keeping was kind of sporadic, and so just getting everything digitized and updated into an actual CRM database was one of the first things we did. The previous owner used a large scale map that he put on the kitchen table and would measure out, by ruler distance between schools to kind of plan routes. And, in my head, I was like, and there's delivery software that will like handle all of this, And so we got some delivery software, and I really thought, man, this is going to be a good 20-30%, profit just dialing our deliveries with this software. And come to find out, he was actually pretty accurate with that that map and that ruler. It didn't really make a huge dent. It did help some, but and especially he grew up in this region because we're all over the Metroplex from Mesquite to Fort Worth, Dallas, Irving. You'd be hard pressed to find an ISD we're not in. So I think 400 plus schools. Plus we got a chunk of schools in the San Antonio region, so that we service. And so I really thought that I was like, man, this delivery software is going to be, a big deal. And it wasn't as big as a deal I thought. I was like, man, that guy knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
So, it's just kind of modernizing everything. Sourcing, we tried to broker a direct source, bulk deals with different vendors that we purchase from. Some worked out, some don't. Also trying to prioritize, growth every year. For whatever reason, some schools, tear down and we have to pull out and we have to wait till they rebuild, which might take a while. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they merge with a school we're already in. Well, that's lost revenue. You'd think it'd be additional, but it's really not much more. And so targeting schools that we want to be in, and trying to really give them value. I mean, really that's like, at the end of the day, we want to make money, but we want schools to find value out of this. It's pretty hard to find a business organization, government entity that won't take free money. So, that's it's nice to be able to help schools out.
Yeah. You got some cool businesses going on. Let's go into how you got into cutting horses and that side of things.
Yeah. I wanted to get back into rodeo. I didn't know how. I didn't know, I looked at roping. I think you're into roping. Mm-hmm. So I went to an amateur roping and I was kind of sorting it out. Man, I was like, it's kind of like Olympic diving, you watch Olympic diving and they're like, ooh, that's really going to cost them. And you're like, what are you talking about? That was flawless. That's how I see roping or really any saddle bronc riding, any of that stuff. And they make it look so easy. And I saw these guys, amateur ropers, man, guys were getting jerked off their saddles. I mean, I saw at least 2-3 guys that got like shot across the arena and they're out of their saddle. Another, one of the steers didn't know the game and ended up turning back and the rope, yanked a guy off and another guy, had almost cut off his thumb.
Yeah,
and there
you
was
saw some wrecks.
Oh man. And I was the wrecks and I'm looking at it like, man, I'm a middle-aged man. Do I want to be getting jerked off my horse like that? Am I going to be able to do that?
Yeah.
And I started having just second thoughts and I was like, man, and then, I'd done some shoot dogging when I was in, high school and I was like, man, I think, I started looking at shoot dogging and started looking at some of the old timers that were still doing it. And I was like, man, that guy's like 55. Like, if he can do it, I can do it, you know? And so I went out to a couple rope Myers out there in Van, Texas, puts on a phenomenal, him and his son, Holden Myers. Holden Myers, I think, is sitting number 3 in the world right now, NFR. Great family, great school. I can't say enough about it. They don't really advertise. It's kind of word of mouth. And so I went to a couple of his schools and was like, man, this is what I'm going to do. Bought a bulldogging horse and ended up having a horrific wreck where I broke my knee.
You went like team roping would be like probably one of the safest things you could do. And then I would say bulldogging is one of the least safe besides rope stocking.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man.
If you didn't hear Ben Hale's story on episode 69, you need to check it out. He's been earning trust in the cattle industry one handshake at a time since 1995 at Western Livestock. Western Livestock is proud to be family owned and operated now with 5 locations: Oklahoma City, Woodward, Comanche, and Waurika, Oklahoma, and also Knoxville, Iowa. They're proud to do business the Western way with honesty, integrity, and a handshake that still means something. You can join them ringside or stream their sales from wherever you are. Western Livestock, where a handshake is their word, cattle are money, and timing is everything. If you're looking to buy or sell, contact Ben Hale at 940-631-BEEF. That's 940-631-2333. Check them out on Facebook or westernlivestock.com. Western Livestock is now accepting consignments for their September 20th horse sale in Woodward, Oklahoma. Visit westernlivestock.com to learn more.
I think it's probably perception, right?
Yeah.
Like, I give the example, like my parents thought, I had an uncle, actually my uncle Gene, he was a bareback rider. And so I think somehow my parents thought bareback riding was safer than bull riding. And so I gave it a shot, but oh my God, like I got wrecked on bareback horses. I mean, absolutely wrecked. Broke my wrist on one, you know, just, even when you're doing it right, it's painful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the horses they have that energy in them. Bulls to me, yeah, you got a few mean ones, but out of most of the packs, especially at a good contractor, they're like big puppy dogs. Like half of them, like, will just headbutt you and leave you alone and want out, you know.
They don't want to try to kill you.
Yeah, but horses are like, man, I'm going to take you to the moon and shoot you to the ground. I mean, they're like, you know, I just remember, as I know from saddle bronc riding or from steer wrestling, my first saddle bronc ride was in a pro rodeo, and this is one of those like what? How did you end up there? I go up there to this rodeo, so I'm bullfighting with my partner the next day at a different rodeo, but a friend of ours, Jeremy Rich, he's in this bull riding, and so we're just up there to pull his rope and support him, and they had a bunch of turnouts on the saddle bronc riding. So this guy comes back and he's like, hey. He's like, this is an open to rent. They're just trying to put, seats and saddles. So if you want to ride, like, sign up, we got open slots. And I was like, man, I always wanted to be a saddle bronc rider. Like, God, I go, it looks so easy. And this guy looks over at me and goes, it is easy. And he's like, you should do it. And I was like, oh man, I don't have the entry fee money. And this other guy goes, I'll pay it for you. And I was like, well, I don't have the saddle. I don't have the right equipment. And this guy comes walking out of nowhere, and he's like 6'3". He's like, yeah. He goes, I'm 6'3". You look like, what are you, 6'3"? And I was like, yes, sir. And he's like, you can use my saddle. And this other guy's like, well, there you go, cowboy. Like, let's get it on. Like, I was like, oh my God. And so, I'm in this moment where like, I can't be like, no, And I'm like, I literally just opened my mouth and said, I've always wanted to do this.
You learned a lesson.
And oh God, did I learn a lesson. So I got that sick feeling in my stomach that's like, you just signed on to die, And I was like, all right, I'll do this, And I go get in the chute. And of course, this horse is like kicking the back of the divider, it's wham, wham. And I'm like, no wonder they turned out, And I would go sitting on this guy, and they've set my saddle up for me, and they've measured my bronc rein, and and all I'm thinking about is, man, if I can just mark this horse out, that's going to be a win, And he just goes straight rocket ship in the chute, just goes straight up. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, like let's get this over with. And I think the shoot boss was kind of irritated with me because he comes over and he goes, "Hey kid, nod your head. It's not going to look any better than this." And I was like, okay, the gate cracks open and we're, to the moon, like just, straight up, straight down. And I remember getting the mark out and I was like, oh, now I can start spurring. And like somewhere along the way, like we got way out of time. The swells hit me in the pelvis, the back of the saddle hit me in my back. I remember the bronc rein being a little bit too short and he jerked his head down and it felt like it broke my arm on the swells. And I was like, oh my God, I lost the stirrup. And by the point I'd lost the stirrup, I was like, oh, this ride's over. Like, I'm looking for a place to get off. And of course I timed it just perfect to where, I jump off when we were like 15 feet in the air. And I was like, oh my God, it's a long way down. And so I survived it and I'm glad I did it. But
you made it a couple jumps anyway. Huh?
I did. I expected to get, a lot of crap from the guys when I got back to the shoot. And they actually were all cheering me on, they knew what they got me into. But the one guy comes over, look at me and goes, "See, it's easy." I was like, yeah. All right. I mean, that's, it's again, Olympic diving. They make it look so, perfect that you're like, I mean, anybody could do that, So, I got into steer wrestling. I broke my knee. And that was literally just almost a year ago. Caught a bad blood clot from that. The doctor says you can go from the shower to bed to the toilet and you have a 75% chance of surviving this. And I was like, man, 25% odds are great when you're playing the lottery, but not when you're trying to live, And so I was kind of, it was a stressful period of time. And my wife wasn't too happy with me, being in bed every day and not being able to do anything, taking care of 3 kids, trying to run the businesses, do all that. And she's like, "No more steer wrestling." And I was like, all right, fair enough. I was like, but I need to be involved in something. And we ended up going to an event where I met 2 guys. They actually both are in the film industry. One guy's been on some Taylor Sheridan shows, and the other guy is a stunt guy for Taylor Sheridan shows. And he was in the cutting horse business, and he's like, I was kind of telling him my story of like, man, I want to be, something to do with performance horses. I just don't know what. And he's like, get into cutting, man. I've been into cutting for a long time. And, he'd competed for a while and he was looking to get back into it. And so I started, I knew about cutting. I just didn't really know anybody doing it. And I started studying it and started just watching and learning. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And got hooked up with a pro, Jason Clark. He's my trainer. He trains my horse, coaches me. That was the big thing is I needed to find somebody that could coach me because I'm not new to horses, but this is a different animal. Mm-hmm. Every sport's different, steer wrestling, team roping, calf roping. What one horse might excel at, just because it's a good calf roping horse doesn't mean it's a good team roping horse. Just because it's a good reining horse doesn't mean it's a good cutting horse. Very few horses I'm starting to learn can do all those events well.
Yeah.
And so finding a pro that would take me on, I went to a couple of pros and they were very polite, very nice about it, but they were like, "Look, I got too much going on. I don't have time to take on someone new." I was like, "Hey, fair enough." But Jason was like, "Absolutely, let's do it." So got to know him and his family. His whole family is into cutting, phenomenal family. Great dude, just really good with coaching, he's, and really good with my horse. But that was also kind of a humbling lesson too. Like, I've always heard in cutting that you need 2 horses. You need one that you set aside for competition, and you need one that you can screw up because, as a beginner, you make a lot of mistakes, and you need a really forgiving horse that's not going to get wrecked or ruined from your mistakes. So
they're solid enough. It's the same way in like roping or something. They're probably thinking, "You're an idiot. I'm not doing that."
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, I'm just going to go do my deal and you sit up there.
100%. I need like a 10, 12-year-old that's, been there and done that. And then, is forgiving for me. Cause riding, steer wrestling horse, it's like, hey, spur, go fast, slide off, there's a whole lot more steering. There's a lot of feet work, and it was all new to me. So, I've had a few horses before, and just ranch horses.
I bet you told some of those trainers, you're like, oh yeah, I just came out of bulldog, and they're like, nah, I don't think it's gonna work.
Yeah, it's probably yeah. I mean, and I'm not like some expert horseman at all. Like I'm a basic. Hey, you kick them once, they start to walk. You kick them twice, they start to trot. You kick them 3 times, you're loping. 4 times, you should be running. That's my extent to it. So this is a whole new different game. This is, you got to keep your spurs in them to keep moving. And then when you pull them out, they stop. And, if you want to turn them, you got to use your spurs. You're not using the reins. Your reins are pinned to the back of the neck. So, it's a whole new game for me to learn. And, Jason was patient with me, but this horse that I got, when finding the right horse too, because I'm, to me, the Wealthy Cowboy Show, my wealth is not financial. In fact, I'm in probably more debt now than I've ever been in my life. It's asset debt, but it's still debt. And for me, everybody's got to come up with what's wealthy. And to me, my family's intact. My kids have their health. I've got my health. Come on. You know what I mean? That's more than I could ask for. And, but finding a horse, you can find a horse out there for 100, 200,000 all day long. I don't have 100,000 to 200,000 for a horse. So I had to find that right deal where the horse wasn't aged out, the horse wasn't too young, and finding that perfect mix, took a while. Probably, almost a year. So found the right horse, and my plan was like, I'm going to start riding with her, and I'm going to start training with her. And then a little bit of an ego check. Hey, this horse is way better than your skills, and you're probably just going to screw her up. And she's a 4-year-old, and she's in her prime. So then I had to go, man, what are we doing here? Like, I'm just going to screw this 4-year-old up. And so I had to have a conversation with Jason. I said, hey, man, would you show her for me professionally? Because it's probably going to be a while till I put any money on her. I'm going to compete for a while, and I got a long learning curve, which is, I think everybody, if you're in the performance horse industry, you got to check your ego sometimes. I've been around horses, around Western lifestyle, but this is a different animal. So, I'm having him show her, and do put the work on her. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to ride her, as a cool down. And she's, I've owned a mare. I've never owned a good mare that I liked. I've owned a few mares, and they were always cold backed, just cold backed and grumpy. And, but she's been awesome. She's been phenomenal. Like just one of those animals you connect with that you're like, okay, like she's something special. So, we've got her first 2 shows, under her belt, and, she placed 3rd on the second one. And, I think her and Jason are going to do really well. I have high hopes. So,
you're hooked now.
Oh, it's addicting. And now I'm like, okay, I'm looking for the next, cutting horse deal where I can, start training. And, man, but it's expensive. And a lot of these guys, I was at the bar the other day with some of these cutters, and I was like one of the few, like maybe 4 people there that didn't have a private plane. And I'm like, man, like, and nobody's these people aren't making their money from cutting. That's their hobby on the side. They have other industries. So I'm always picking their brains, like, like, well, what is it you do? Like,
getting around some good people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Trying to find out what, it seems, I don't know if you notice this, but in my opinion, most people in the ag lifestyle have the ag's kind of like their side hustle. And they have like another main hustle that allows them to do the egg. Somebody was joking with me on social the other day saying, man, I got to get down to Texas and do some cowboying. And I was like, all right, first of all, like cowboying's like entrepreneurship. There are levels to this. You have tier 1, you have tier 2, and tier 3. Like I'm like tier 3 to tier 5, right in there, that category, So, but yeah, the tier 1 guys, they're doing it full time. Man, it's, I think for somebody like me, I look up to those guys still. I'm like, man, you guys are you guys are doing what we all wish we could, and they're pot committed. So
yeah,
it's cool to see them out there doing it.
Yeah. It's we have a blend on here of business people that are involved in different ways, or I like and I enjoy talking to the guys that's their all they do is ranch, or the horse business or whatever, because I think you can be successful in it and financially and every aspect of it, but it's just
Sure.
a lot harder deal. It's a lot smaller margin business and just tougher go than going and starting or buying a cash flowing business or getting into something else.
Yeah, and I see a lot of the guys that are doing it full time successfully have come up in that industry, have some type of family guidance or really good mentors. Mm-hmm. It's pretty rare you see a guy that leaves the suburbs and buys a ranch unless they're in some type of niche. I remember reading a story in a ag magazine about this couple that went and started like goat yoga, on this ranch, and you're just like, goat yoga, like, all right, So I know there's niches out there, but yeah,
figuring it all out, it's the trick
for sure.
And kind of alluding back to a wrap up question here, like you've had some success financially in life. You've been around a lot of successful people, just like going back to you're sitting there with the rich cutting horse owners and stuff. But in your success and then being around a lot of successful people, what would you say like is one trait or one skill that is the most important to develop and to hone and perfect?
That's a great question. I think, this sounds kind of cliche, but I think a mindset, your mindset around your capabilities, around learning, around who you're hanging out with, where you're investing your free time, and setting actual goals. Like, it's one thing to say, I want to do something. Well, it's great. Everybody wants to do something, but you have to set out expectations that you can reach, that are realistic, and then take actions to actually achieve that. But that also requires a mindset. If you sit, kind of the rich dad, poor dad, if you sit there and say, man, I don't have enough money and there's not enough opportunity, that's a mindset thing. That's your mindset. Flip that script and say, man, there's lots of money out there and I have the skills to go get it. And my life is full and complete already. But financially, I'm going to use this, financial money to achieve my next goal or whatever that is. Then you'll start seeing opportunities, to do that. There's a book by, Ryan Stewman, that's really, it changes your perspective on how you see things. It's like how to make money off anything. And he talks about, ranching. He owns a ranch and he makes money off his cattle, and he makes money off his pecans, and he makes money off his hay, and he makes money off of, all these things that he does. But he purposely puts these things in his life that he enjoys doing, that he can achieve financial success. Well, it's kind of the same thing with the cutting horse industry. Like, you find the right cutting horse and then you breed them. And, owning a Ferrari is cool, but you can't breed a Ferrari, and so, but you can't breed a cutting horse. And, the industry's kind of at an all-time high. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to get in the door, but when you get in the door, you actually have an opportunity to go to these futurity sales and try to get, back some of your investment on, training or just the breeding.
Yeah.
So it's a cool, you can either look at it and go, well, it's too expensive and nobody can make any money, or you can go, you know what? The industry's an all-time high. Yeah, it's an opportunity. So it's, even my injury, I could have sat back and go, well, that's it. I'm not riding horses anymore. It's too dangerous.
Yeah.
It's, and I literally had to, just focus on I remember my first, physical therapist. I walked in and she goes, well, we might get you, to 90%, flexion. We might get you to 90. I don't know. You're probably not going to be able to run. And I was like, out the door. Because I was like, I'm making a full recovery. I'm going to be able to run. I'm going to get full flexion on my leg. And that was my mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And so being tied to somebody that was already like, well, I don't think it's going to happen for you.
I
Like,
want to hear that.
I was like, I instantly went and found another physical therapist, because I was like, no, I need somebody that's like, we're going to get you back to whole.
Yeah.
And so, because that was my mindset. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
It sounds silly, but really everything you do, you got to have the right mindset.
For sure. I mean, it all starts with your mindset, and then you can come up with the skills and the habits and all that after that.
Yeah.
And wrapping up, how can people find you if they want to get a hold of you, learn more about your stuff?
Yeah. You can get a hold of me on, on socials, Facebook's just Spencer Robinson. I run the Triple Cord Ranch page, Facebook page, on Instagram. My Sons Are Guns, Instagram. And, I think we have an Invest in Techs, page as well. We don't do a lot of advertising on that, but, if anybody's interested, and if I can help somebody and give them advice or what's worked for me, I love doing that. I wouldn't be where I was at now without people voluntarily giving me advice or pouring in information of what worked or what to be wary of. I'll never tell somebody what to do. You have to do that. I'm going to tell them, hey, there's lots of ways to do this. Mm-hmm. This is the way I use. If you like it, cool. If not, that's cool too,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, that's the way to be. And I know we could go on and on as much stuff as you got going on, but we got to wrap up, and I appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Y'all go check him out. We'll have to do something else, maybe a part 2 or something, and we can go deeper. And I'm sure you got more rodeo stories and more cool stories and more cool advice and all the businesses you got going. So thank y'all for tuning in. We'll see y'all next time.